So, welcome. This is Adapt the Canvas. Today's session, the misconception of transformation. Most people think transformation is simply going from A to B, but they don't account for the emotional toll that it takes on the psychology of the creator. Of course, if you're a creator, you're more susceptible to the emotional strain that comes with the challenges of growing yourself as an artist. Why? Because majority of creatives are more emotionally in touch, and so you feel things more deeply. So this is going out to you guys who are creatives, who are deeply, you know, bound to their work by your emotions. And it's powerful because people sometimes tell us, oh, you're too emotional. Yes, but those emotions are what make the art so good. So let's dive in. The misconception of transformation. Everybody wants to level up. Everybody wants to go to that next level. But most people are not prepared for the emotional tax that you need to pay that gets you to the next level, right? We all like to knock on the door, but when we have to go through and we have to pay that price, it's a very steep price. This is where we see people start to retreat. And this is where we get that statement: one foot on the gas, one foot on the brake. Right? You feel great. You're making some momentum, and all of a sudden, the internal monster comes up. Right? Stress, anxiety, worry, blame, doubt, fear, and all of a sudden, you retreat because you don't want to feel those feelings. Listen, those feelings are not indications that you're doing anything wrong. They are the complete opposite, and we're going to get into that throughout this conversation. So you might feel anxiety, you might feel stress, you might feel worry. Think about this. When you are not doing the growth work, when you haven't set a goal, a challenge, when you haven't set yourself a challenge to go to the next level, for instance, I'm writing a new album. This album is way different from any of my other projects, and it's hard work. It's stressful, right? But here's the thing: if I made an album the same as all the other albums I'd made before, it wouldn't be so stressful. It wouldn't be so hard work. Why? Because I know exactly what I'm doing. I just repeat the pattern, right? But here's the thing: how interesting would that be for the audience to listen to? How interesting would that be for me as a creator trying to grow and expand and give my audience new experiences, as well as myself as a creator new experiences? It wouldn't be very fun. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't take me as a creator to the next level in my life. And so, what is the anxiety and the stress about? What are the problems about? Well, you only get problems when you do something different. You only get anxiety when you're in the unknown. You only get stress when you stretch beyond your current limitations, right? So what does that tell us? That tells us that in a normal state, when you do nothing, or when you keep doing the things that you've always done, you keep getting the things you've always done. There's no surprises, right? Another word for that is monotony, right? Boredom, right? We've all been there. We played it safe. We do the same thing over and over again. And then after a while, we wonder why we lose interest. Because we're bored. We're not challenging ourselves. The biggest challenge for human beings when we don't feel like we're growing is because we don't make progress. We're not making enough progress. So the stress and anxiety, contrary to what we believe, are necessary, and they are indicators of the growth that we're going through. So here's the thing. Instead of retreating, when you feel that anxiety, how about stopping for a second and just recognizing that you're moving forward? Right? You don't have the keys to the kingdom yet. You haven't figured it all out yet, but you can recognize that you are making some kind of progress. You are doing something kind of different. So there's an urge to quit and to give up, right? We've all been there. Again, we always start with this excitement. There's this burst of activity, and that's the universe. The universe wants to give you a feeling of accomplishment. It wants to give you signals and signs that you can accomplish this goal, this vision, right? If you set your mind to it, if you set your whole mind to it, and you've seen it, you've visualized it, you've tasted it, you've lived at the end state, you've got your vision board, right? You've written out your statements, you're clear in your mind of what it is that you're doing, but you hit that brick wall after 2 or 3 weeks, and then you've made a decision, it's not working. What do you mean it's not working? What did you expect was going to happen? Right? You thought that because you've done the vision boards, you thought because you did the visualization, because you told everybody, you did your drawings, your affirmations, your statements, your mission statements, all of a sudden you thought the universe was just going to part the sea for you and just going to walk through, it's going to be that easy? Again, a goal, when you set a goal, it's not for you to reach the goal, it's for you to become the person who can reach the goal. So let's double back. So if that person set this vision and did all this work and then easily walked through, the challenge is too easy. Right? The challenge is too easy. You're not going to grow as a creator. You'll not make progress. And if you don't make progress and if you don't grow, eventually you will hit stagnation and boredom. And more importantly, you will start to become complacent. And that is not the place you want to be as a creator. You want to be in. So there's a really good analogy, a really good idea I read one time in a book where the author of the book said, you want to be in a space where it's almost difficult and you're just kind of on the edge of difficulty as long as you can stand that feeling of being just on the edge. And that's enough difficulty to give you growth, right? Because you want to grow. You want to be putting in the work every day so that when you finish your day's work, you feel like you've done something. You feel like you've challenged yourself. You feel like you've overcome a difficulty, right? If you can be in that space every day, and this doesn't have to be big, huge, massive things, they just need to be enough to make you feel like you've done something that was uncomfortable. You've done something that made you sweat. You've done something that wasn't popular. You've done something that everybody else didn't think you could do. You've done something that you said you were going to do, and you found a way to do it, and you achieved it. When you do things like that on a daily basis, and again, it doesn't have to be massive things, they strengthen you. Because what we're all looking for is we set these goals, we have this vision, we get to work, and we want to just fly through it, and we think that because we can just fly through it, everything's going to be okay. It's like, no, it's not going to be okay. And you're not going to fly through it. And when you do 2 or 3 weeks work, and all of a sudden you hit that brick wall, and you start to the self-talk, maybe it's too big. Maybe I took on too much of a challenge. Maybe, and then the self-talk starts coming in. And now we're taking a dive. You want to restrain from that pattern, because if you do it, then there's a high probability that this is the pattern that you enter into when you take on challenges that are seemingly too big, or you haven't got a strategy to deal with the seemingly too big goal in a way that you can manage. And so you read all the books, you set all these goals, set all these challenges, and they don't work. And then now what do you say about yourself? It's not necessarily your fault in a sense. It's just that you don't have the right strategy, the right toolkit, the right people around you to guide you through. You can do it. And here's the thing. In the 20 years that I've been doing this coaching, I've seen people take on challenges and achieve them in a way that they weren't prepared to do the work. What do I mean? You can do it, but it's not going to be the way you think it's going to be. And this is where people get caught out. They have the vision, they start they start on the road, but then you have to take some detours. You might have to go underground. You might have to take a plane. You might have to take a side door through the matrix. But 9 times out of 10, the people who give up are not prepared to go off the beaten path. And this is what the challenge is. The fear of the unknown makes people stick to what they know for too long until the results stop producing the outcome they want, and they think it's not working. No, it requires you to do something different. This is why we say we need to stretch ourselves, right? The stretching of yourself, this is the thing. The stretching of yourself produces the negative thoughts. The negative thoughts are contained in the nervous system. Your nervous system has a default network. Your default network is your nervous system when it's resting. So whenever you're under stress, a pattern of behavior comes out that is called your default network, and it's what you do to stay safe. And once you reach your limit, 3 or 4 weeks of doing new work, the default network starts to scream and yell, I'm uncomfortable. I don't know where you're taking me, right? And it starts producing all of these negative self-talk, anxiety, stress, fear. You're interpreting that as this isn't working, I feel bad, I feel terrible. No, you're just growing, right? Who said growth is supposed to feel good? Who said going through challenges is supposed to feel nice? Right? And so think about it. You're in the gym. When do your muscles grow? Right? On 11, 12, 13. And how do you know your muscles are growing? Because they ache. Right? So think about that. What do they say? That no pain, no gain. Right? So as a creator, your job is to get used to reading the signals, reading the signs of your growth in a totally new way. You can't set a goal, have a dream of going to a place you've never been. Think about this, just a logical way of explaining it. You cannot go to a place you've never been by going down a road that you know and recognize. Right? Because if you know and recognize it, the place you're going to end up is somewhere where you've been before. So it's nothing new. So the goal isn't stretching you. The goal isn't requiring you to do anything new. And so why is all this important? Because over the next 5 or 6 years, we're going to be going through huge, huge, huge changes. Technology, we all know what AI is doing, we all know what crypto is doing, we all know how fast the planet's moving. And as a creator, your job will still be to create in amongst all of this. But your job is to create something so different, so unique, that it positions you as the leader in your field so that you can easily keep building and growing without competition from other people copying you, AI copying you, you feeling worn out and stressed and bored because you're just doing the same thing to survive, to stay afloat. No, this is about transformation. This is what this period is about. Total transformation requires a different mindset. And a different mindset requires different thinking. And that different thinking requires different programming, different patterns, different habits. And if you track back, that all requires you to start believing and thinking about yourself in a different way. And if you've been coasting, this is your wake-up call. If you've been trying to get through the block, this is the strategy to get through it. If you've been retreating, recoiling because of the feeling of that things feel uncomfortable, that's not the reason to stop. You've all seen the image of the guy in the mine with the pickaxe, and he's, the images of somebody who stops too early because one more strike of the pickaxe and the gold or the diamonds are just behind that piece of mud or dirt or rock. And we never know how close we are to our success, right? Because sometimes we think it's too hard, or we come back next week. No, you lose momentum. You have to figure out a way, and we'll talk about that in a sec. You have to figure out a way to maintain your momentum. At Adapt the Canvas, we teach a method of keeping accelerating. We keep moving forward. We don't slow down. We take the obstacles out of the way. And that's what this is doing. This work is about seeing things as they are and recognizing that the obstacles are challenges that help us grow. So we understand that. We understand that that's our growth, right? We change our beliefs. We change our patterns. And we know once we change our beliefs and we change our patterns, we can carry on moving faster towards our goal. So one of the very interesting things as well about the growth work is when things fall apart, right? And so I know I'm smiling because this has happened to me 3 times in my life. And I'll tell you a quick story. When I first left the area I grew up in, I got into music, and I left, and everybody that I grew up with wasn't on the same path as me, so I had to leave, and it was like my life was falling apart because I had to go to a new area and rebuild again. And then the same thing happened again when Jungle blew up. We were all hanging out together as a group. We were all hanging out together as a group. And again, Jungle blew up. The same thing. People who were around at the same time, they weren't in it. They weren't in it the same way. And so, again, had to leave those group of people and make new friends. 3 times that's happened to me in my life. And so, most people feel that. And I did the first time, and I felt it. I felt like my life is falling apart. I've got no more friends. I had to make a decision about work. I had to make a decision whether I was going to pursue this, going to get a job, I was going to go deep into it. And it feels like you're falling apart. And the reason is you are, right? And it's uncomfortable. The old version of you cannot fit into this new world. And so what most people do is that when they start to feel their relationships falling apart, they start to see things around them falling apart, they quickly try and keep it going. Right? But you cannot be in 2 places at the same time. You cannot be your old self and have a dream about being a new self, a new version. And this is the thing as well. What we try and do, we have a dream about the things that we want. We have a vision and a goal about the things that we want. That vision requires a different identity than the one that you have right now and the one that you used to have. That old self cannot get you to the new place. And this is the saying, what gets you here won't get you there. Right? And that's your identity. The identity that you use to grow and become the person you are today won't be the same person that you and the same identity you use to get yourself to that next level. You need to upgrade it. And this is what the misconception of transformation is that it's an upgrading of the programs, of the habits and the beliefs that have to make you go to that next level. That's what happens when you go to the next level. It's like you're upgrading your beliefs, you're changing your psychology, you're changing your ideology. And once you do that, your frequency changes and you're around a different group of people who are already thinking and believing and having patterns and habits in that new space. And so while we think we need to hold on to the place where we've come from, no, you just need to recognize that there are people who are already doing the thing that you want to do, and it is safe. And so this is a thing that happens over time. This isn't like just go straight into it. This happens by conditioning yourself, techniques, self-talk, journaling, meditation, visualization, and you have to get used to being this new self. It's just like getting a new job. It's just like having a new relationship. It's just like moving to a new city. You have to get used to the new environment. And so you will have to get used to this new environment that you are creating inside your mind. Right? These new visualizations, it feels uncomfortable. Remember, the self-talk is released because you're doing the work. You are stretching yourself because you're doing the work, because you have a vision, because you want to become better, because you have a goal about becoming something better than you are right now. The stress and anxiety is a result of that decision, right? I know it sounds crazy. You're creating the problem for yourself, but the problem is about growth. It's always about growth, progress, right? So progress and growth are your friends. It's just that it's not clear. It's not clearly identified in the internet the difficulty and the challenges that come with progress and growth, right? And so once you get used to this idea that progress and growth come with stress and anxiety, but stress and anxiety means that it's working, you can change your mindset about the challenge that you're going for and what you're making it mean. Because the meaning creates more resistance and slows you down, and you're reacting to the resistance and to the meaning, and now you're going to get more of it. Okay? What you want to do is recognize the feeling, recognize the resistance. It's a story from the past. It doesn't mean I can't go. It doesn't mean I can't go to the future. It just means that I feel uncomfortable today. Right? You move to a new city. You don't know anybody. You're not just going to go home. You know you're going to have to do some things, make some friends. Maybe join a few groups, go to a few cafes, go to clubs. Do things that initially in the beginning make you feel uncomfortable. Find groups of people who just moved to the city, or find groups of people, friends who've moved to the city who can show you around. This is the same thing. It's a challenge that you're going to go through, and you're going to build teams, you're going to find mentors, you're going to find coaches, you're going to find people who are already on the road who can guide you through this pathway. So another thing that people mistaken as well is this whole idea that because they don't feel anything, they think it's something wrong. You're in the void. When you're in the void, you don't need to necessarily feel you're in the void. And so I have a great analogy for this. This is what I've been working on myself for the last 6 months. And I came up with an analogy. When I started to learn to be a DJ, and if you swap this for driving maybe, or riding a bike. But for me, when I first started DJing, there was this thing about mixing two records together. And in the beginning, you're clanging. It doesn't sound great, right? But eventually, you find the sweet spot. It takes maybe 8 or 9 months, but eventually you figure it out, and you figure out how to mix so that both tunes sound like one. But what I used to do was, because they were so in sync, I'd be like, there's something wrong, right? And I would touch one, and it would go out, and I'd be like, oh, it was perfect, right? That's what the void is like. The void, the unknown. When you're in flow, that's what the void is. That's what the unknown is. If you've been deep in flow state, if you've been deep into the unconscious, and you're just in that sweet spot, right? No one can. You don't communicate. You don't talk. I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was saying, "Yeah, when I go in the zone, I'm there for like weeks. I'm in my pajamas." I'm in my pajamas on the desk working. I'm like, you know what? I'm saying I sleep underneath the desk. I'm just in. I'm all in. When you get that, you're in the zone, right? And so there are no feelings. You don't need them. You're not even thinking. It's not even required, because you're in the zone. You're in your sweet spot. And so this is what we're working towards, right? This shutting off of all of the chatter, the shutting off of all of the self-talk, the focus of, and the clarity and the certainty of what we're doing and how it's producing what we want effortlessly. And we all try and get there. We've all got loads of techniques and tools and tricks that we need, that we try to do to get us into that sweet spot. But after a while, once we're there, some of us are like, it's not working. I can't feel it working. Well, that's because we have something called a lag indicator. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a sec. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to touch the turntable to see if it goes out, right? Because we want to know it goes out so we can know that it was perfectly in. Why touch it at all? Why touch it at all? Just leave it. Enjoy being in the moment, right? And so, as we go through these steps, you're going to start to see this picture, and this is the challenge, right? The challenge for me was to not touch the mix, right? Don't touch the mix, right? So that's my analogy for my creations now. If I'm in the studio and the self-talk is, don't touch the mix. You know, if I'm doing some work around building a new program and I'm in the zone and I'm overthink it, don't touch the mix. Just because you can't see right now what's happening, it does not mean that it's not working. If you've got young children and they're growing, do you sit there and just look at them to see how much they grow in a day, every day? No, you don't. 1 minute your partner's pregnant, or if you're listening, if you're a woman, you're pregnant, and then there's a little baby, then there's a toddler, and then there's a 5-year-old, and then there's this kid talking back to you, right? It just happens. And we're not consciously watching it, but we know the child is growing. There's growth there, there's progress there. They start talking, they have their own opinions, their own mind. This is what we're working towards. You as a parent, add to the growth of that child. You as a creator, add to the growth of your creation. Nurture it. Help it grow. Don't stifle it by continually asking, are you growing yet? Are you done yet? Are you where you should be yet? Set the vision, set the course, do the work every day. That's the discipline. Do the work every day. So, lagging indicator. When we talked about what's the lagging indicator? A lagging indicator is when there's a gap between what's going on in the mental world, the mental interior, your beliefs, your patterns, your habits, your vision, the excitement of what you're doing and how it makes you feel, and how it shows up in the physical world. Our ideas. Let's go like this. Look around the room you're in. Right? I'm in our new place. So everything in this room was an idea first. Everything. The clothes I'm wearing, the laptop, everything. Everything was an idea first. Everything in your room was an idea first. How long did it take for this iPhone that I'm using to record this, through this live stream on now, to become made manifest in this physical dimension? From the idea that Steve Jobs had it, to explaining this idea to his engineers, to them then creating it, and then it becoming available to us as consumers. A year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? Think about it. Think about all the stuff that you've got in your room. Think about when you want something, the idea of wanting it to the actual physical manifestation of it coming into your life. How long does that take? That's a lagging indicator, right? The the way to think about it is, this is why some people give up too early, because they have a vision, they have a goal, they have a dream, they have a desire, they're working towards it. It doesn't arrive on time. Two reasons why, right? It doesn't arrive on time. What do they say? It's not working. I'm doing something wrong. No, you're not. First of all, you don't know what time is. This is not 2026, what we're in right now, right? No one knows what the real date is. They just made that up, right? And if you want to check this out, go back to the Emperor Constantine when he reset the time, okay? The Roman Emperor, he reset time. You go to the Aztecs, they got their own version of time. You go to the Egyptians, they've got their own version of time. The pagans, they got their own version of time. The Native American Indians, they got their own versions of time. Everyone's got their own versions of time, and they're all different, right? So when someone says, how long is it going to take? How long does a baby take to get created? If you've had children and the doctor gave you a date when the child was supposed to be born, was it born on the date? No. Right? I don't know any babies that were born on the actual date that the doctor says is supposed to be born. They say it's 8 or 9 months, give or take. A couple of weeks, right? Babies come when they're ready, right? Time isn't what we think it is. No one really understands what time is. Time means different things to different people. Time means different things to different cultures, right? The time that we have on the watch is not time in reality, even if that's the concept. Even if what I just said makes any sense, if it's even real, how does that work? We measure time with a clock. We're measuring something. I don't know if we're measuring time, but that's the device that we use, that we all agree that we're going to measure something with. Whether it's not measuring time, we're just agreeing that it's measuring something. But time, how the universe constructs time, think about it. How long does a tree take to grow? How long does a human take to grow? How long is an elephant how long is an elephant pregnant for? How long is a whale pregnant for? How long does it take us to go around the sun, the moon, the solar system? These are all measurements of different time. So when we're asking for a vision and a goal to become real, what time are we using to measure? Okay, so when we see the lagging indicator, this is where the training of don't touch the mix comes in, because it hasn't happened when I thought. It must be broken. It can't be. It can't be the way it can't be happening, because it's not happening the way I think it should happen. The way you think, you've been programmed by other human beings who live outside of nature. We all do in the West. I have, you have. Anybody who's watching this who lives in the West, you've been programmed by a system that is controlling humanity to make them work in their system. They got no interest in teaching us the fundamentals of reality as they actually are. They've taken out bits and pieces, but they haven't given us the real story. And then it's like, now you put something in the chat if you've been hearing about the new calendar, what people are trying to move towards. So it's not the new calendar, it's the real calendar. It's a 28-day cycle, 13-month calendar. You may have heard about it. It's like, I haven't heard anything about it. Why 28 days? Well, 28 days is the average cycle that we go around the moon. Right? The average day is 28 days, right? So where do we get these odd days from 31 here, 29 there, 28 there? Well, again, and then we only have 12 months. If you look at some of the months, some of the names don't match up to the month. So December, Deca, means 10, but it's 12th month. October is 8, right? So when you start going through the months, they are like all jumbled up, all mixed up, not even in the right order. The cycle itself is the cycle itself represents harmony. And so we need to actually understand and get tuned into the reality of what it is that we're creating based on the real time, right? When I say real time, I just mean natural time, natural law. Tune into the way reality actually works. And then when you set your goals, then you actually understand how reality actually works. Great book to check out called Time is a Tool by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Talks a lot about what I'm talking about, but he goes into a lot of depth. He's a psychologist and he's got his great breakdown of how to use time. But when you start really figuring it out and you break it down, you'll start to see that you're out of alignment, not what you've, not your goal or the idea of how long it takes. You just don't have a proper concept of what time actually is and how long something actually takes. So set the goal, work the goal. My philosophy around goals is do the work every day until the goal shows up. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Think about it. Have you ever got a goal and then you're disappointed at the end? You're like, oh, I worked all that time just for that, right? Because you didn't want the goal. What you really wanted was to become the person who could get the goal. What you really wanted was to become a person who could progress in life. What you really wanted was a person who could set a goal, have a vision, and accomplish it. That's way more powerful than the goal itself. Because those tools, that framework, that mindset, you can apply into anything that you decide is going to be a challenge in your life. And so, why is Adaptive Canvas focused so much on mindset? Because without the mindset work, it doesn't matter about anything else. People try and circumvent the mindset, and I've seen it. This is why I came out of the music business for 10 years and studied this stuff, and then went back in and started teaching it to schools, colleges, and universities, because I started to see a pattern with creatives who were not reaching their full potential because they only had 50% of the game down. They were very proficient in using the tools, Pro Tools, Cubase, Ableton, samplers, synthesizers, mixdowns. Great, brilliant, designers, dancers, comedians, specialists at drawing, directors, whatever. Great, but they weren't growing. They weren't developing. They were stagnant. They were plagued with doubts, fears, lack of self-belief, anxiety and stress about what people were thinking about them, whether they could release this next project. Excuse me. And one of the things that I came across on many, many occasions was people giving me their work, and then they give me their work and they say, this is the stuff that I put out, and this is the stuff that I do for myself. I'm like, what? What did you say? They say, yeah, this is the stuff that I put out, and this is the stuff that I do for myself. And you're wondering why you're stagnant. You wonder why your career is not moving forward. The stuff you're doing for everybody else, it sounds like what everyone else is doing. You're just conforming. The thing that the thing that you're doing for yourself is the thing the world needs to hear. And you're like, no, I can't let anybody hear that. They'll judge me too harshly. It's too personal. No. That's it. That's the thing. Once you put that out, it changes the game. You create zero competition, a market of one. You create something so unique, so different that you eventually get the keys to the kingdom. But people are overthinking. They're filled with anxiety and doubt. They don't believe in this thing because because why? It's so different from what everybody else is doing. But that is what we want. Remember the iPhone when it first came out? It was completely different to what every phone or device was about at that time. Think about the idea. Every phone at that time looked the same keyboard, same green screen or blue screen, same funny digits, the same game Snake on all of them. And then Steve was like, "No, I'm gonna do something different." Comes up with this piece of glass. Everyone's like, "What the hell is this?" But you know what? It captured our imaginations. And now look at this. iPhone 17, iPhone 19 is out now, or 18, right? 18 iterations of the same thing, and it's still huge. The best-selling best-selling phone in the world. Now everybody's copied the iPhone. So man, think about your product that you're working on right now, and you think that it's only for you, and you're just going to do some generic stuff to keep people happy, but it's not selling, and you're not happy. And when you go back and you do the thing that really makes you happy, and you say this is your personal thing, it's the world wants to see that. The world wants to see that. That will change your life. That will change the game. So I'm going to make these notes available. So they're going to be up on the site very shortly. You can download these. It'll be in a PDF form, so you can read through this at your own pace. Do the work. If you guys out there are connecting with this and you want to take this a step further, I invite you to book a call with me. Let's do a 30-minute call. Let's figure out what it is that you need help with, and let's find a way to build your new identity, your future self, and turn yourself into a cultural architect who can lead, who can create new ideas, build a brand that really reflects you as a leader, that's mission driven, that's purpose driven, and that's going to change your life and the lives of everybody around you. If you're ready for that transformation, hit me up in the messenger, or there's going to be a link after this chat where you can book a call with on the calendar. So I just want to thank everybody. We'll be back next week for some more Adapt the Canvas. Thank you guys. I can see some friends who've been with me for a while now, so it's been great to see some of these names again. So where do you want to be in 2050? Yeah, in a different universe. So listen, guys, thank you all again. I will see you next week for some more Adapt the Canvas. Have a great week. Bye-bye.